Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome to the long-awaited final episode in our mini-series on the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Nicki and I have been doing Star Wars content for several years now, so I can't believe we finally made it through both of the original trilogies. As has been the case with the others, we talked for literally hours, so the podcast-friendly shorter version, which is still about an hour and a half, will be on the main podcast and on YouTube, and the extra long, tangent-filled version will be available exclusively on Patreon for those who want even more random Star Wars conversations. Okay, let's get into things with our final prequel episode talking Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. I feel like we might get through this one quicker because, not that I don't like this movie, but this is probably my least favorite of the prequels, even though this is like most people's favorite.
Really?
Like I it's a downer episode, so
Oh, it is very.
that, like, for me, the more, I don't know, depressing something is, the less likely I am to like it,
Oh, no,
even if it's
fair.
very good. Like, technically this is a good movie, but like it's not one that I go back to for a frequent rewatch. I watched it a couple months ago because I'm going through it with my cousin Shana and her husband, because he's never seen Star Wars. Shana had, but the last time I'd seen it was when it was in the theater. And actually, Shana went to the theater with me to see it, and that was the last time she had seen it as well. We just don't usually care for things that are
Oh, no,
sad
that's
or
100%
whatever.
fair. No, that's 100% fair. I may have seen this a couple of times since it was in theaters, but by and large, yeah, it's not, the prequels are not something I generally revisit. For me, and I know that you grew up with the prequels more than you did the original trilogy, but I don't know that I have such an affinity for the originals, and then but I grew up on those as a kid, so yeah, I think it's a
Hmm.
thing that you were raised on. It's like any kind of fandom, you know.
Yeah.
I know we've discussed history with this one, but I can tell you that of the prequels, this was the one that I was the most looking forward to. Like all, regardless, where Darth Vader and everybody else kind of ends up. But I
Hmm.
remember as a kid, like hearing about the theories of like, oh, there's a lava planet. Oh, and he wrote this and he wrote that. And to see that, I really wanted to see that battle and see how it all played out and to see how you got like Darth Vader.
Uh-huh.
And especially after Attack of the Clones, I don't it was that okay, how are they going to make the leap? Because there is dissatisfaction which clearly he had in Attack, and there was all of these other elements that you could see moving into place, but it
Hmm.
was like, what is that essential thing that's going to make him say, you know what, forget the Jedi, forget all the good stuff, I am going to go rock and roll and wreak havoc, you know.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, we'll hopefully eventually get there, but like the Clone Wars series, I feel like they do a better job of explaining his transition than the movies did,
I could see that.
especially with what happened with Ahsoka.
Okay.
Because, I mean, not to like be too spoilery, but
No, it's
Ahsoka
all right.
leaves the Jedi Order because of something that happens to her, that the Jedi, it feels like they don't care about her.
Hmm.
And I know
Okay.
that that had a big impact on Anakin in the series. And I feel like that whole arc kind of explains his growing distrust of the Jedi better than this movie does.
Right. But I think too, you look at like tentpole movies like these, they tell the big crazy story, but they
Yeah.
leave out the details of, all those little moments that do go in between. It's like you look at the fourth Harry Potter movie, it does like the movie jumps from giant event to giant event to giant event. You look at the book and you've got, all these little intricate details that kind of come in between that show you all the little reasons. Those big things are never, it's always a straw that broke the camel's back kind of a thing. And it seems like the big movies focus on that. They're like, you know what? I am mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore kind of moments. But you don't see all those little bits. So I think that, like you talk about Clone Wars, it's probably, they had those things to build off of and say, okay, Anakin started here and he finished here. What drove him to that point? And it allowed them the freedom to be able to say, it was this, it was that, it was, the way Ahsoka was treated, it was, not being able to have pancakes for breakfast or, whatever. So,
Well, this movie opens 3 years after the previous movie. You have the opening crawl describing the conflict now between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, which is the Separatists, and they're being led by Count Dooku, who is the Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus. Nobody ever remembers him as Darth Tyrannus. He's just Count Dooku.
Oh, absolutely. And some of the names, I'm sure that they come up with interesting reasons to come with names. But can you imagine? Yeah, I played Count Dooku. Count Dookie? No, Count Dooku.
I, uh, Devoid of context, that is a very strange name. I mean, even with context, I guess it's a weird name. But yeah, the opening of the movie is Obi-Wan and Anakin on their way to rescue Palpatine, who has been captured by Count Dooku.
I feel like you were air quoting that a bit.
Yes. You also have the brief scene of poor little R4 being beheaded by a buzz droid.
Yes,
I liked
actually,
R4.
really, yeah, R4 was good people. R.I.P. I did really enjoy the buzz droids as a concept, like the fact that you've
Yeah,
got all these, like, whatever you want to equate them to, termites or bees or whatever kind of destructive insect. I mean, that they were really cool.
yeah. I mean, to have a droid that takes apart someone's ship mid-flight, that's a really creepy, dangerous, evil concept.
Oh, it totally is. And it works. Like, how do you fight that? You've got your
Yeah,
little, R2 unit or R4 unit out back doing its thing. And I mean, there's no short of the little lasers that they have. How do you, it's not like you can electrocute the outside of your ship. You certainly can't exit your ship and start swatting them like flies.
yeah.
The fact that they haven't implemented that more, and I know with the originals they really couldn't, but bringing something like that back for the space battles in the sequel trilogy, feels like a missed opportunity a bit.
I'm sure they probably have some sort of in-universe explanation, like they
Oh,
retired the
I'm
Buzz Droid program or whatever.
No, yeah, I would agree with that. It's one of the ideas that came out of this that I think it's probably one of the things I really enjoyed the most from a droid perspective, at least.
It's probably something they'll eventually revisit because I can't imagine that we'd never ever see one again. Because every once in a while they'll bring up some obscure thing from one piece of media to bring back for something. So you'll probably get a Buzz Droid again.
Yeah, I mean they have mouse droids, so
I love the mice droids. I want one.
So I will stay with the opening battle that we see here. Oh my god, and I know that George Lucas is not necessarily the greatest at writing, realistic conversations, but
We'll get to a few of those.
oh, the cringe. Just oh, I've got a bad feeling about this. We're in the middle of battle. What do you expect?
We gotta say this line. It's contractually obligated. We must
I've been
put this line in here.
I've been waiting for this or I've been looking forward to this for a long time. You want to run up against a bunch of like the little robot droid guys? Really? Okay, cool. Or are you excited to see Emperor Palpatine like under duress? Okay, cool. Oh man, I do think that they're more the most emotive of any of the episodes. I think.
I mean, of the prequels, probably.
Yeah,
There is
yeah,
I mean, it's not like they suddenly turned amazing, but I feel like that kind of stuff is much better than the other two.
right. Well, considering what goes on, if they were just like, "No, stop! You are the love of my life." I mean, that's some Tommy Wiseau level emoting there. I'm raising my voice. Clearly, that means I am emotional.
It sounds like another parody idea,
Oh
casting
my.
him as Anakin.
You're tearing me apart, Padme. I'm fed up with this universe. What's the matter, Obi-Wan? Chicken? Oh, hi, Jar Jar. I'm so sorry.
But yeah, anyways. They eventually basically crash in the hangar of General Grievous's ship where Palpatine is being held, and they leave R2 behind to wait for them while they fight through battle droids, and R2 has to hide from battle droids. I love the scene where he's trying to contact R2, and R2 is like desperately trying to hide this microphone that's blaring his location, and the big battle droids are looking around like, what's going on here?
There are some moments, like some, I mean, they're schlocky, but there are some decent moments of comedy in this, I will say. I feel
Yeah,
like there was a little bit more for all of the darkness of this one. I felt like it had some of the better comedy moments.
especially like with R2 and these droids. That's probably my favorite part, especially when he like hoses them down with oil and sets them on fire.
That ability to fly thing comes in handy too. So,
Yes.
or the ability to have jets, I should say, not necessarily to fly.
Yes, yes. I feel like these droids are not built very sturdily if all it takes is a little bit of oil and fire to completely incapacitate them because they went down immediately.
Well, they're mass produced. I mean, anything that
That's
mass
true.
produced is going to have a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
The fact that they're even still using the Roger Roger droids, I mean, let's be honest.
I love them so much.
And
There's
they
there's
all get murdered horribly.
there's like maybe it's just because of the animated series, but I just love their little weird moments. And like later on, when the one takes the lightsabers from Anakin and Obi-Wan and gives them to General Grievous, and General Grievous barely acknowledges them and he walks away, "You're welcome." Well, they eventually get to Palpatine, and Palpatine tells them that they're no match for him. He's a Sith Lord. And Obi-Wan says, Chancellor Palpatine, Sith Lords are our specialty. I was like, okay, this is supposed to be like some ironic dark foreshadowing, isn't it?
Just a little tiny bit. I liked how he was sitting there too in the big chair, like, it wasn't some podunky chair in the corner. He was given the big nice chair with the, leather sides, and it probably reclined and was heated and probably had a massage thing in there too. And now I'm jealous.
You could have made it more believable by having Count Dooku tie him up with some ropes and just leave him lying on the floor in the corner.
His ability to act too. Oh, please save me. No. Oh.
He has some interesting acting moments in
No,
this
he
movie.
totally does.
And of course, you get the big lightsaber battle here with a healthy amount of banter.
As you would expect.
And Obi-Wan is eventually taken out by Count Dooku knocking him unconscious and dropping a platform on him, which looked like it would 100% either cut him in half or fully cripple him. And he walked away without a scratch after he was woken up.
Well, Jedi healing ability is an untapped force.
I suppose. Just the way that thing fell on him and it like shoved him as it was falling was like he's not waking up from this. Well, I guess he is.
He's going to wake up screaming.
Yeah. But of course, Anakin defeats Dooku by unhanding him.
I think George Lucas may have some issues with, hands, because how many people between droids and humans and other species as well, how many unhandings are there in just this movie? I don't know, even just among like the sentient beings. There has to be at least 8 or 9 of those.
I guess I didn't think of it, but within this movie, you probably have as many as there are in the rest of the series.
I mean, Count Dooku lost both of his hands. Anakin lost his hand. Mace Windu lost his hand.
General Grievous lost two of his four hands.
Yes. One of the other Jedi lost a hand. I mean, that's yeah.
I can't remember exactly how the battle played out at the end. Well, not battle, massacre with Anakin and the Separatists, but I feel like somebody there must have lost at least one hand.
Oh, absolutely.
Limbs flying everywhere in this movie. Well, of course, after he subdues Count Dooku, Palpatine encourages him to kill him. And of course, you have Dooku looking surprised, like he can't believe he's being betrayed like this. I'm like, dude, you were a Jedi who joined the Sith. You should know better. You should have seen this coming.
Did you also know that water is wet?
And then, of course, you have the memed to death line, do it.
You know what, John? That's a pretty good rendition of that line. Are you sure you're not evil?
It helps that I'm kind of getting over a cold, so
Huh? That also does help.
I think it also helped my battle droid impression earlier. Well, after Dooku is dead, Palpatine tries to get Anakin to abandon Obi-Wan, but he refuses, and he carries him out of the room. And like again, all of this is happening in the middle of a massive space battle. So at some point, as they're fleeing, Grievous's ship is like falling out of the sky towards Coruscant. So they end up like running up an elevator shaft as everything is going sideways, which I thought was a really cool concept for a scene like this.
Oh yeah. Well, and the fact that like in theory art, and I know artistic license, but the fact that artificial gravity wouldn't have sort of kicked in to compensate.
I thought about that, but like, well, partly it's the fantasy, but also who knows what kind of a mechanic it takes, and maybe whatever thing makes the artificial gravity got damaged. So whatever.
Well, I
I'll
would
just
just
go with
assume it
it.
was well, no, it makes 100% sense. I got thinking about that, like, oh, if you I mean the whole back end of the ship falls off. So it's
Uh-huh.
probably where there was some kind of a generator where that would take care of that. So no, and
Yeah.
I'm all I the MST3K mantra of repeat to yourself, it's just a show. You should really just relax comes into play with a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah. I I overthink a lot of things, but I try not to do that with Star Wars because Star Wars is
it's
more
Star Wars.
fantasy than science fiction, so
Yeah.
it's fine. Whatever. But eventually the ship is righted and Grievous traps them, and they're brought to the bridge. And this is where you get the scene with the droid handing him the lightsabers. You're welcome. I love how sarcastic they can be. I feel like for of all the droids that talk, they have some of the funniest personalities. Like, I mean, C3PO is funny too, but like, I don't know, there's something about battle droids. They're just so dumb. I love them.
I would agree. And they are played for, I mean, across the board, they've been played for comedic effect, really.
Uh-huh. So yeah, they're captured, but they get their lightsabers back from Grievous pretty easily. And Grievous ends up smashing out a window with one of their weapons and escapes, while the Jedi have to save themselves from being sucked out into space. So now they're left with no choice but to land the ship, which is basically crash the ship.
They land in a unique sense.
You get the, I don't know if it's iconic or not, but it's a line that's stuck in my head. Not to worry, we're still flying half a ship.
It's a glass half full kind of moment right there, which you would expect from Obi-Wan.
Yes, and then another happy landing.
I sense sarcasm. Palpatine's in the background going, oh God, on top of taking over the universe and establishing my new empire, I'm gonna have to fix this entire runway. Ugh.
That's why he raised the taxes.
Exactly. That's why he took over the universe, because he was so tired of having Jedi randomly crash land giant ships.
Didn't even say thank you.
I know.
Truly the most evil.
Oh, 100%.
So after this, Palpatine and Anakin go to report what happened. Obi-Wan says he's not brave enough for politics. Anakin talks to Bail Organa while Palpatine talks to Mace Windu, and he tells him that Dooku has been killed, but Grievous is still out there, and without Dooku, Grievous is now the leader of the Separatists. Mace tells him that finding Grievous will be their highest priority. And in this scene is where you get Jar Jar's only line of the movie. He says, "Excuse me," to one of Palpatine's senator friends. That's it. He doesn't say anything else.
Well, you can tell the respect and the impact that he had on the series overall by how much he appears in this movie.
The impact he had at the time, I think he's kind of been redeemed in a lot of fans' eyes
Oh
lately.
no, absolutely. And the way that Ahmed Best was treated, I mean, it shows the worst side of the Star Wars fandom. It's certainly not
Hmm.
its core, but I
The
don't,
online
I,
fandom,
I can't,
especially.
yeah, I can't imagine being so upset at the person that played a role that you go that far.
Yeah.
I just it's I mean that's a subject for a different day, but I none of them deserve that. I don't care if you like their performance or not. No one deserves that.
Uh-huh. There was a really good limited podcast, if anyone is interested, called The Redemption of Jar Jar Binks, where somebody who has a different podcast, Dylan Marin, he interviews not just Ahmed Best, but a whole bunch of people involved in that, including people who were unintentionally kind of the architect behind the original hate. And like he builds the whole story, like figuring out what happened back then that ended up with him getting so much hate. And
Wow.
it's such a good podcast series. It's only 6 episodes, and each one is only like 30 to 40 minutes.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
it's really worth listening to if you're at all interested in Ahmed Best and what became of him after the movies and what he's doing now.
I was gonna say he's gone on. I think I read someplace like what he had gone on to do, and it sounded like he was doing pretty all right.
Yeah, and he's kind of coming back into Star Wars now too. He played, actually, I think it was the same character, a character named Kelleran Beck in sort of a kid's Jedi game show. I never saw the show, but I know it was like a Disney Plus thing that a lot of people really liked, where he was like the leader of a bunch of kids who were going through a bunch of challenges. It was like a reality show, but everybody was in character.
Oh, nice.
And then that character was brought back to The Mandalorian briefly, like in one episode, in like a flashback to the days of the Clone Wars.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm hoping we'll get more of him because like he's a good actor and
He
he
is.
he deserves it after all he went through.
Agreed.
So here Anakin meets with Padme and she reveals that she's pregnant. And he's happy, but she's freaking out. And she wants to know what they should do because their marriage is forbidden. And this would basically prove everything that they've been doing in secret.
Right.
And he tells her not to worry about it. You'd think he would be a little bit worried about it, but okay.
Well, I'm sure he's probably very worried about it, but he doesn't want to worry her. And
Yeah, yeah. But while all this is happening, you have General Grievous, who somehow escaped all the stuff with the battle, and he ends up on Utapau, where the Trade Federation, Newt Gunray, and all of the other separatist leaders have been hiding. You see Poggle the Lesser from Geonosis there as well. I
it
love his name.
is good. Utapau sounds like the coolest name of a planet. Like, oh, what are we gonna call this one? Call in this world Utapau.
Yeah, I like the name. I like the creatures that live there too. I love the big
Yeah.
lizard that Obi-Wan gets to ride.
Oh, that is so cool. It's a neat combination of bird and lizard.
And the other things in the background, I don't know what they are, but they're like horse pteranodons. I love those as well.
Those are cool.
But here Grievous gets a call from Palpatine as Darth Sidious, telling him to move everybody to Mustafar because the war is almost over. And Grievous protests, saying they just lost Dooku. But he says it was a necessary loss because he'll soon have a new, more powerful apprentice.
Bum bum bum.
So back on Coruscant, Anakin and Padme have some really well written dialogue about how in love they are.
You take a shot every time they say the word love, yeah, you're gonna be dead by the end
I
of the
was just
movie.
going to say that sounds like a dangerous game.
Yes, the most dangerous game.
So they go to bed, and Anakin starts having nightmares about Padme dying in childbirth. And he tells her about it, but says he will not let it come true. And then he goes to tell Yoda about it, but not with enough detail that Yoda knows exactly what's happening.
And honestly, Yoda's advice to him is so generic and terrible. And I know that he's like, like next level. It's like someone that really knows the subject, but they can't convey their information. Like in his mind, he's like, yeah, I gave that guy really good advice. And Anakin's going, oh God, Padme's gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically says stuff like death is a natural part of life and he needs to let go of his fear of losing people. But I think that maybe is kind of the point. I think to me, it's more of the Jedi not being perfect, and this is one of the things where they are kind of in the wrong with how they force people to bury their feelings.
Oh, I 100% agree. And from a very Jedi perspective, if he was talking to any other Jedi, I would say, oh, yeah, that's great advice. But he's talking to someone that in the past has proven to be incredibly emotional,
Uh-huh.
was from the start brought in late, so he didn't have that ability to kind of roll through all that stuff. He's basically saying put a cork in it and deal with it.
Basically, yeah. Now I kind of want to hear Yoda say that.
Cork you must put in it. Suck it up, or
You must suck up.
Cupcake, you must suck up. Yes. Or they're sucking up, you must do cupcake. Dies, everyone does. Live, everyone does not. Do you think that, because obviously Palpatine throughout has kind of been like guiding Anakin's path from a distance, or in this case, more close up. Do you think that he influenced Anakin to have those dreams, or was that actually Anakin like having the dreams? And additionally, did his need to not let that happen make what happened happen?
Okay, I feel like I had this exact conversation with somebody, and I feel like I also read something about this. I think the consensus is that Palpatine did not influence the dream, but he was able to sense what was going on in his head and he capitalized on it.
Right,
Like he, I don't know, read his mind and saw what he'd been dreaming about.
right.
But also that brings up another point that I was going to talk about, which is kind of a side note, but kind of hilarious. When I was watching this with Shayna and Eric, we we realized that his dreams. Have you ever seen the show That's So Raven?
Here and there.
His dreams are basically like Raven's visions. Like
You're
every
right.
episode, Raven would have a different vision of the future. She would work through the whole episode to try and prevent something terrible from happening, and then she would cause the terrible thing to happen at the end.
Well, that's always kind of the thing about premonitions and future vision and all that kind of stuff. You know, you try so hard to avoid it, but because you tried so hard to avoid it, you ended up causing it
Yes.
because you overthought whatever the thing was.
Uh-huh.
And obviously, death of a loved one is next level if you're talking about it, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. I had saved a screenshot of something that I saw on Reddit like a few days after I watched this with Shane and Eric. Someone asked, was it Palpatine who planted the idea in Anakin's mind that Padme was going to die? More specifically, was it Palpatine that was causing Anakin to have dreams about Padme dying, or was that something else? And someone replied, it would be insanely coincidental that Palpatine planted the idea that Padme would die exactly the way she did. Anakin got a forced premonition of the future, and then, acting to stop it, unknowingly caused it. And then someone replied to that, Star Wars, that's so Raven. So I wasn't the only one to have that thought.
Nice.
So after Anakin talks to Yoda, he goes to see Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan tells Anakin that Palpatine has requested his presence, but he should be careful of him. The Senate is expected to vote to give him more power in order to bring a quicker end to the war. And Anakin is in favor of this, Obi-Wan is not, which basically you had that whole conversation in the last movie about he basically admitted that he would be in favor of a dictatorship.
Which is never good,
No.
especially with a guy that wears that big of puffy sleeves. Don't trust the puffy sleeves.
What's he hiding in there?
Probably a sandwich or a second head.
Or maybe a lightsaber.
Also, do you think he kept that up there all the time just to be dramatic?
I don't know. I suppose he probably would have had them on him at all times just in case.
Right. He's like all the time, like, don't think about the lightsaber. Don't think about the lightsaber.
Don't bump the button. Have it shoot through his sleeve. Oh, what's this?
Oh no, my puppy
How'd that get
sleeve.
there?
No, my favorite puppy sleeve. That's it. I'm taking over the universe. Screw y'all.
So Anakin goes to meet Palpatine, and he tells him that he's appointing him to be his personal representative on the Jedi Council. Basically, he's asking him to spy for him because he doesn't trust the Jedi. And the Jedi Council are not really in favor of this, but they kind of begrudgingly accept it. Even though they allow him to be on the council, they don't grant him the rank of master, which is very upsetting to him.
He's kind of more spoiled kid than any like, and I understand that like you're told from an early age, oh my gosh, you are the epitome of the chosen one, you're this, you're that, but we can't
Hmm.
give you this. Sorry. I mean, I can imagine that it would be a real letdown, but I don't know, like he seems to go back and forth, like when he has the discussion with Obi-Wan that, you know what, I trust you, you are my friend, you are like my brother, but then in the next scene he's like, Obi-Wan doesn't trust me, nobody trusts me. It's like, calm your face. Suck it
Uh-huh.
up, Cupcake. You're fine.
Well, also
But I know
Obi-Wan
that's not the point.
explains, like, to have him on the council at his young of age is already a huge thing.
Right.
Like, he's not old enough that anyone else would have been granted the rank of master at that point anyway, let alone be on the council.
Right. He only would have been like 23 at that point, which I know it's all semantics, but yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, they kind of ignore his being upset. He's kind of shut down immediately by Mace Windu, and they move on to discussing the war. And of course, you get the apparently classic line. It's not one that would have stuck in my head, but now it's been memed to death. What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
That is one that you would not expect.
No. But yeah, after this, Anakin is assigned to protect the Chancellor, and Yoda is assigned to go to Kashyyyk. And this
Those
is
two
where you
things should have been flipped.
I think he would have been happier. But this is where you get the conversation between Obi-Wan and Anakin telling him it's actually a huge honor to sit on the council at his age. But this is also where he tells him that the only reason that he was really approved is because they are trusting him to report on Palpatine's dealings. Essentially, they're asking him to spy on him while Palpatine's asking him to spy on them.
Sounds like a comedy.
I mean, in another universe, it probably could have been.
Both sides of the law. Which will Anakin choose? Turns into like a, I don't know, a Gilligan type of a thing, and every single week something bad happens and goes, Anakin.
That does sound like a good parody. Of course, Anakin is upset with this, and he says it goes against the Jedi Code. And Obi-Wan himself is kind of unhappy with the situation. And he basically goes and tells Yoda and Mace Windu as much. And Mace says that he doesn't trust Anakin, but Obi-Wan reminds him of the prophecy, and then Yoda wonders if they've misread the prophecy. But Obi-Wan insists that he won't let them down.
I think everybody needs a sandwich. Like everyone is so uptight. They just like they need a sandwich. Like everything upsets everyone. They just I don't know. They need like a really good sandwich or like a brownie or something.
Go to Dux's diner, he'll fix you
Exactly. Just make sure his hands are clean.
up.
The special seasoning is from his tank top.
So Anakin goes back and tells Padme what happened, and she asks if he's ever thought that they might be on the wrong side. And she asks if he's ever considered what if the Republic has become the very evil they've been trying to destroy. And he's upset with this and says she sounds like a separatist. And she wants him to go and ask Palpatine to stop the war and let diplomacy resume. And he refuses and tells her to make a motion in the Senate where that kind of request belongs. And then, of course, she kind of backs down from this, tries to comfort him. Hold me like you did so long ago by the lake on Naboo. So after this, Anakin goes to the opera with Palpatine. I don't, it's never said in the movie, but what they're watching is a Mon Calamari aquatic ballet called Squid Lake. Like, canonically, it's somewhere was written that's what it was. It's on Wikipedia.
Nice. I love that.
Me too. And in this scene, you can see George Lucas in character as a blue Pantoran. His name is Baron Papanoidea.
Good name.
If you look outside their box, you can see him standing there. I never noticed him, but then I remembered reading about that, and I watched specifically when I was watching the movie, and I saw him. It's obviously him once you know he's there.
What do you want to bet that was his like nickname in high school?
It could have been. Palpatine tells Anakin that they've located General Grievous on Utapau. Anakin is delighted by this news, as Grievous' capture will basically mean the end of the war. But Palpatine tells him that he'd question the competence of the Jedi Council if Anakin was not sent to go after him.
Right.
And then at this point, Palpatine dismisses everybody else that's in the box. And once they're gone, he basically starts his seduction of Anakin to the dark side. And he starts telling him he thinks the Jedi are trying to overthrow the Republic. And he knows that Anakin must have sensed it too. And Anakin confirms that the Jedi don't trust him, but he doesn't think that they're trying to control the Senate. But he says that his trust in the Jedi has been shaken either way. And Palpatine basically deduces from this that he was given the mission to spy on him. And then he goes into talking about the Sith and how they're not that dissimilar from the Jedi. And then this is, of course, where you get the now iconic lines about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. Palpatine describes Darth Plagueis as a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and wise he could use it to influence the midi-chlorians to create life, and with this power he could also save people from death, which gets Anakin's attention.
So this is probably, and I think I know this, but Plagueis was Palpatine's master, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not said in the movie, but in other media, it
It's
basically
been implied.
they've given, I don't know how much of the backstory has been fleshed out, and I'm not sure if this is something that I will focus on, but there is an upcoming series that will focus on a time that will include probably Darth Plagueis. Not sure if it will include Palpatine or not, like a young version, but it's
Right.
like, I feel like I heard it was like 90 years before Phantom Menace. There's a show called The Acolyte coming
Okay.
about like somebody who is a Sith apprentice. Like I don't know much about the show. I just know that it takes place during the High Republic era, and I think it focuses on a pair of twins, one of whom becomes a Sith and one of whom becomes a Jedi.
Okay. That makes sense.
But it is in that era, so it wouldn't surprise me if at least Darth Plagueis shows up. Whether or not Palpatine does, I guess, is still to be seen. I don't really know how old he is or could be, so maybe it's not. Maybe he wouldn't even have been born at that point.
Right.
But anyways, he tells him about that, and Anakin says, "Is it possible to learn this power? Not from a Jedi." So in here you have Yoda arriving on Kashyyyk. They're having a meeting here through hologram, and Anakin relays the information about General Grievous being on Utapau. He says that Palpatine has requested that he go, but Mace Windu tells him the Council will decide, not the Chancellor. And Yoda believes that a master with more experience should go, and they decide that Obi-Wan will be the one to go after him. And then the council adjourns, and Yoda and the Wookiees go into battle, complete with a Wookiee doing a Tarzan yell.
Remember the first time I heard that? It's like, that's either really awesome or really terrible. I'm not sure which.
Maybe both.
True. It's like Schrodinger's Tarzan yell. Is it silly or is it awesome? It's both.
Yeah. So Anakin and Obi-Wan are preparing to leave for their respective assignments, and Anakin apologizes for his actions, says he's just been really frustrated with the council lately. And Obi-Wan tells him he's very proud of the Jedi he's become, and he's a far greater Jedi than Obi-Wan could hope to be. And he tells him to be patient, and it won't be long before the council makes him a master. And this is basically their last conversation before he becomes Darth Vader.
Yeah. He actually says to him, goodbye, old friend, because it was the last time he saw him as his friend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Obi-Wan arrives on Utapau, and the Powans, the tall, creepy-looking guys, who are actually good, even though they look scary.
You know those egg slicers that some reason it looks like they took one of those to one of those guys' faces.
I never thought of that, but that is the perfect description of their faces.
I just remember it because I used to have to like do a lot of egg slices for that at this restaurant that I worked at, and seeing that it's like, oh my god, it's like if you like bring it down just enough where it clears the surface.
Uh-huh.
That's their faces.
Pretty much exactly. So the Powans tell him that Grievous is there, but they're being watched. And then they give him a Varactyl named Bog, which is not named in the movie. It's just on Wikipedia.
Absolutely. Well, where else would it be, right?
Yes, of course. And I love this little lizard, huge lizard.
Oh, so cute.
It's like an iguana with a bird beak, and he sounds kind of like a zebra.
Hmm.
Zebras sound so weird. They're like the perfect alien noise, the perfect creature to get an alien noise out of. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's what they used, but it wouldn't surprise me.
no, absolutely. And that is one thing with, and I know for whatever you think of these movies, one way or the other, the music and the sound effects
Oh
are
yeah.
across the board top notch. Like visual effects aside, just the way that they use sound in these movies
Hmm.
is beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the noise these things make. So he starts going through, I guess, the cave system. Like Utapau is sort of like all caves, I think. It's like you go down a hall and then you're going through all these
That's like an ant
passages.
farm, kind of.
Oh, kinda. I wonder if that's what it was modeled after.
Quite possibly. I mean, not to say that they look insectoid, but if you're talking about, I mean, there's a bunch of different planets in the Star Wars universe that kind of do that. Like the Tweak home planet is that way. Everything's underground. I guess the Genosians weren't that way, but
They were sort of. It was kind of in a mountain,
yeah, yeah,
but it was like dirt passages. I guess this is a little better than what the Geonosians had.
yeah. Oh, it was definitely more organized. Even like the way that they're like their landing platforms, like the fact that it looks like the skull of an animal or the skeleton of an animal.
Oh yeah. I wonder if it was. Like, did they
It
reuse
looks
something
metal.
or
It looks like it was metal. My guess is that it was probably informed by that, but I don't think it was actually
hmm.
that way. But
Yeah, he eventually finds Grievous, and then you get more iconic lines. Hello there, General Kenobi.
I love the hello there. I've seen so many re-edits of that, like put into other things.
Yes, it's become very iconic.
I mean, it's a hot British guy saying hello.
And then you get their lightsaber battle where Grievous splits his arms in half so he can use four lightsabers all at once.
He turns into a weed whacker.
Basically.
Just imagine him doing some kind of a weird pitch on like Coruscant, shopping network. And he's like, "Do you have trouble with pesky weeds? Well, let me tell you, pick up the lightsaber weed whacker,
That
the
sounds
laser
like
whacker."
something they would do on Robot Chicken.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
But then this is where you get more arm slicing as Obi-Wan eventually cuts off both of his lower arms or hands. I don't think he cuts off the whole arm because after he's been disarmed, he skitters away on all six limbs like a spider. And then he jumps on like one of my favorite little speeders. It's like a one-wheeled bike motorcycle thing with legs. So it like runs for a while and then turns into a wheel. I need that thing in Lego. I think it used to be a Lego set, but it was retired years ago. I need them to bring it back so I can buy one.
You just need to find it on eBay, not pay $1,000 for it.
I would be afraid to buy something that old because back then, brown bricks, the chemical compound, made them unstable. So anything from then kind of breaks.
Oh,
Anything that was brown will fall apart eventually. I think they've since fixed the makeup of the brown bricks, but there was something in the dye that made the whole thing unstable, and after a few years, they all started cracking.
that's not good.
So they just need to bring back the set so that I can buy a new one. So he speeds out on this bike wheel thing, and Obi-Wan chases him on his lizard. But at some point, he dropped his lightsaber, and then one of the clones, Commander Cody, finds it and holds on to it for him.
Oh, so super fun point about Commander Cody. It's actually based off of an old serial that I'm sure they probably drew inspiration from for Star Wars, the original Star Wars, called Commando Cody,
So not a Star Wars thing, something outside of Star Wars.
outside of Star Wars. So basically, it was a serial from the 50s. And it basically he's got let's see, am I thinking of the right one? So he's got like a helmet kind of like the Rocketeer,
Hmm.
but he would go off under the planets, and it was a 12 episode series done back in the 50s. It's goofy as hell, but for the time I'm
I'm
sure
sure.
yeah. So anyway, that's some fun little inspiration there, because I mean that's what a lot of what Lucas drew from, so
Yeah.
not that one specifically, but kind of that whole era.
I know stuff from that era. There's a lot of random inspirations.
I mean, it's like anyone is that way, the things like that's why you have the resurgence in, stuff from the 90s now is because those people that are creating those series are drawing inspiration from their childhoods.
Uh-huh. So back on Coruscant, you have Anakin kind of whining to Palpatine about the Jedi not trusting him. And of course, Palpatine seizes on this opportunity to shift him more towards the dark side.
I wouldn't normally say this, but watching it this time, not that Anakin is weak-willed, but and I suppose given like the people that he's surrounded by, he trusts Palpatine, he trusts his judgment, but he chooses to some extent to go to the dark side really
Mm-hmm.
easily.
Yeah.
Given, it's like this massive decision where you've been told all of your teens and 20s that, hey, dark side bad,
Uh-huh.
do not do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's like, yeah, I don't know. It feels like maybe bad writing, but it
I don't
had to
even think
happen
bad.
somehow.
No, I know. I
So,
just like I've kind of talked about this way throughout with the prequels. My biggest hangup has been like Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader because
uh-huh.
I feel like it would be like you're pushed to your limit. You would not make that choice easily or anything else, even if you didn't 100% know what you were getting into.
Yeah.
And I still don't feel where Anakin was pushed was that limit. It was, and I'm not saying that I'm not calling it lazy writing. I'm not sure their reasons. And it doesn't, my opinion doesn't really matter on the subject, but I do, I don't know. That's one of those points in the prequel trilogy that always got me.
Yeah. I feel like it's just a matter of the fact that they don't have enough time to fully flesh out something like that.
True.
I think that's why I like the TV series so much better because you actually get that character growth.
Oh, agreed.
Not to say that like even with the addition of the Clone Wars, I don't feel like 100% convinced that that is why he turned to the dark side, even with that like the retconning that they did with
Right.
Ahsoka. But it does help a little bit more, but I do still feel like he turned a little bit too easily. At the
Right.
very least too quickly.
Right. I mean, I do think that to some extent, like, because he was an ambitious guy. He had been
Hmm.
pumped up from the time that he was, 9 years old, that you're the chosen one. You will change the course of everything, and they kind of left it at that.
Hmm.
They kind of expected him to make his own way. So I do get that, whether he put the expectations on himself or they were put on him by everybody else, which obviously there was a lot. Um, there was a matter of not knowing who to trust and all of those things that anyone that age kind of goes through and figuring out who they are as a person.
Hmm.
So I mean, from that perspective, yeah, I can see that. Like, because he is not naive, that's not the right term, but ideological is probably the right term. So you can see like that perspective and whatnot. So I just for the perspective where it goes to where he's so overtaken by dark side that he kills a whole bunch of kids. Obviously,
Yeah.
that was put there to cement him as, kind of a universally terrible person.
Yeah.
It's neither here nor there. It's just I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I know. It's one of those things where you kind of just have to accept it because that's what happened. But
Oh no,
at the same
absolutely.
time, you still question
Oh yeah. Well, you
whether or
can do
not
both.
everything
That's
was, yeah.
right. It's film discourse at the end of the day, regardless of it happened the way it happened. And I don't know. I've always learned not to trust someone with puffy sleeves.
That's the whole takeaway. That was the point of the whole entire series.
You're damn right.
But this is where you have the, I guess, final revelation that he admits to being a Sith, and Anakin is shocked. And he has, at first, he seems to have a rational reaction. He like becomes very wary of him and almost seems like he's going to take him out there, but then he decides to turn him over to the Jedi instead. But then Palpatine, of course, manipulates him more, telling him he's very wise, and he dangles the knowledge of the power to save Padme over him.
Power of love.
Yes. So back on Utapau, Obi-Wan manages to catch up with General Grievous, and since he doesn't have his lightsaber, he uses one of those purple electro staff things from the droid guards to attack him. And then he like tears open his chest plates, revealing like I don't know how many people knew in advance, but that he had living organs, but this is like the revelation that he's a cyborg and not a droid.
Right.
And then Grievous manages to toss him away, but he hangs on to the edge of this platform thing and uses the Force to get Grievous's blaster. and fires at his organs. And he
Ouch.
falls over, bursting into flames with his eyes flaming and screaming, and he's dead.
Right. My one weakness, my exposed internal organs.
No big, just my one weakness.
I did enjoy how all the lightsabers were kind of taken from the battle, and it does sort of become a bare, or a bare knuckle kind of beatdown between the
Yeah,
two of them.
yeah. So Anakin goes back to the Jedi Temple. He tells Mace Windu what happened, and he wants to go help take him in, but he tells him if what he says is true, Anakin will have gained his trust, but for now he wants him to wait until they get back. So then Mace Windu takes, and I only knew Kit Fisto, like by his name, but the other ones are Ajan Kolar and Saesee Tin, who are Jedi that you kind of see a little bit in the Clone Wars, but
Right.
they're basically just invented here to be killed.
Right, exactly. I did enjoy there was a meme on I think it was I don't remember where it was, but the alien that's delivered in Men in Black by Will Smith? It's got all the tentacles and stuff.
Oh, the baby?
Yeah, the baby. They
Yes,
said
yeah.
Will Smith delivered or Agent J delivered Kit Fisto, and then they show them side by side, and it's kind of funny.
I haven't seen Men in Black in ages, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So these four go to arrest him, and then you get a whole bunch more iconic lines. Are you threatening me, Master Jedi? The Senate will decide your fate. I am the Senate. Not yet. It's treason then. And then his weird scream as he leaps over the desk with his lightsaber.
I was really hoping they would have put a Willem scream in there.
I mean, I feel like the one that they used is now kind of iconic, though.
Oh yeah, no, very much.
But he pretty much easily dispatches everybody except Mace Windu. And Mace Windu almost overpowers him until Anakin shows up. And then Palpatine pretends to be a little helpless old man. I'm too weak. Please don't kill me.
Again, fantastic acting by yeah.
And yeah, this is where he's using his force lightning and he deforms himself, basically. This is his own fault. It's not the Jedi that did this to him.
Oh, but typical politician, he's going to blame everybody else.
Yes. But yeah, Anakin comes in and intervenes and is pretty easily convinced that he can save Padme if he helps him defeat Mace Windu. So then you get another disarming.
Doesn't he lose his head too at the end?
No,
Oh, he just lost his
because
head.
there are a not insignificant number of Star Wars fans who are absolutely convinced that he's still alive.
I could see that.
He doesn't lose his head. He gets zapped and zapped and zapped, which you would think would kill him. But then he like gets zapped out into the sky and then he falls and lands somewhere in Coruscant, which I mean, it looks like he's obviously dead, but it's Star Wars. You didn't actually see a body, so who knows? He could come back somehow.
And it's Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes. I think that's the main reason that people are convinced that he's not dead because they want him to come back.
Right. Well, I mean, look at Nick Fury. How many times has he come back?
With franchises like these, I don't even trust it if I see a body.
Yeah, no,
They could
I would
always
agree.
invent a way to bring him back.
Multiverse.
Yeah. But yeah, at the end of this, he seems remorseful briefly, but then says basically, just help me save Padme. I can't live without her.
Right.
And something about I pledge myself to your teachings. And then you have him naming him Darth Vader.
Let's see. You're going to be a father. We're going to call you Darth Vader.
I wonder why he chose that name because I'm pretty sure that he did not intend at the very beginning that Darth Vader was going to be his father, like for the first movie.
That might have just been, I suppose it sounds pretty metal.
He heard a cool word and was like, yes,
Yes.
Darth Vader. And then Palpatine tells him that the Jedi are now enemies of the Republic and must be destroyed, and he sends him to the Jedi Temple to do what must be done, and tells him to show no mercy.
Ha 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 ha.
And then after he's done there, he's supposed to go to Mustafar and wipe out Newt Gunray and the rest of the Separatists. So back on Utapau, Obi-Wan gets his lightsaber back from Commander Cody. But as soon as he leaves, Palpatine gives the order to execute Order 66, which I didn't think much of it in the movie, but I did start thinking about it as we went through watching the Clone Wars series, because
Mhm.
with the Clone Wars series, you get to know the clones a lot more than in the movies. In the movies, they're basically just kind of background characters that they're basically droids
Right.
almost. You don't care about them. But through the series, you get to know them and you start wondering, these guys actually like the Jedi. Why would they turn on them? But that's explained towards the end of the series. They basically, Order 66 is kind of like a key phrase that activates something that they can't control.
Right. It's like Manchurian Candidate levels,
Yeah, yeah,
or I guess sleeper cell type of deal.
yeah. So then as soon as they hear this phrase, they basically are on autopilot, killing Jedi indiscriminately. And then you get a whole bunch of scenes of different Jedi getting killed, most of which I don't think it were ever named, but you have some that are more iconic than others, like Ki-Adi-Mundi, who has the tall head.
And then you get the funky like top knot thing going.
Kind of, yeah, I don't really remember what all on his head was going on. I just know he had a tall head.
He's like a cone head. He's like Dan
Kinda,
Aykroyd.
yeah. And you also get Ayla Secura, who is a Twi'lek. And I love the planet that she dies on. It's
It's
not named, but
beautiful.
it's called Felucia. And I think you get a couple of episodes of the Clone Wars series that take place there. But that's like one of my favorite locations from the movies, and you only see it for a brief second as they kill her.
Yeah. It is a gorgeous place to die. Not that you want to die, but
Yeah. And then you also get Plo Koon getting shot down. He's the one who has like a sort of a robotic looking mask, and he's very wrinkly looking.
Right.
He was never one of my favorite Jedi. I always thought he was ugly, but you get episodes with him that like kind of focus on him in the Clone Wars series. And now watching him die is a lot more sad after having gotten to know him. He's also the Jedi that found Ahsoka when she was a baby.
Aw.
I guess a toddler, not quite a baby, but yeah. And then, of course, you get Anakin entering the Jedi Temple. Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do?
Die.
I will say that little kid, his reaction to the lightsaber is perfect. The way he kind of jumps a little bit, it's so real.
Well, I guess when they shot it, Anakin said boo to him to get like a genuine sort of reaction.
That makes sense. He was a young enough kid that would be a little bit startling.
Yeah.
I will say though that this whole scene, it almost makes me question what the rules are for someone being redeemed, because it doesn't seem like somebody who did all of this child murdering could or should be redeemed.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And so if you go by traditional faith doctrines, like as long as you're repentant at the point of death, you say you're
Yeah,
sorry, you end up going to heaven, at least by Catholic doctrine. I would assume it's kind of going with that there is no point, but as long as you're drawing breath, there is the chance for redemption kind of a deal.
that's true. I guess it makes sense from that perspective. It's just like with most movies, you it normally you feel like people are only redeemable to a point. Like if they do something that's past the point of no return, there's no way they can come back from it. But I guess it does make sense from that perspective. Like nobody is ever truly irredeemable.
And outrightly, I think that there was probably supposed to be that catalyst of for Anakin where there is no going back, where like because
Hmm.
there's those little things like that kind of dig you deeper and deeper, but then there's that point when you hit a nerve, you fall through the floor, and you are irredeemably, at least at that point in time, evil. That thing that takes you from sort of kind of there to all the way there.
Yeah.
And killing kids would definitely be one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you go to Kashyyyk, where Yoda is almost taken out by his troops, but he jumps up and beheads them with one slash of his lightsaber. And then Chewbacca and Captain Tarful help him escape. And then you have Senator Organa going to the temple and seeing some of what's going on. I don't think he actually sees Anakin do anything, but he sees somebody get killed and he flees the scene. He has a ship that looks like the ship from A New Hope. I don't think it is the same ship, but it's the same model of ship.
That's a tentative 4, I think.
On Wikipedia, it says Tantive 3.
Okay, because of what
So
the
this,
one
I
in
think, yeah, I
New
think,
Hope was tentative 4, I think. So
yeah. So this is probably like the previous model. Or maybe
exactly.
maybe when Leia came of age, she was gifted a Tantive 4.
It's like, hey, honey.
I've got the Tantive 3, you can have the Tantive 4.
Now look, no crashing it and no being, trying to outrun the Empire.
No promises.
That's my daughter.
Yeah, he goes back to the ship and is going to try and make contact with any surviving Jedi. And then Anakin goes back to Padme and tells her the Jedi have tried to take over the Republic. And he says his loyalty lies with Chancellor and that he's going to Mustafar to end the war. And then Bail Organa picks up Yoda and Obi-Wan and they go back to Coruscant. There's like a beacon or something calling for help, trying to get the Jedi to return, and they're going to try and shut it off and reverse it, like warning people to stay away from the Jedi Temple.
Right.
And then you go to Mustafar and you have the separatists getting a message from Palpatine, Darth Sidious, informing them that his new apprentice, Darth Vader, is on his way and he will take care of them once he's arrived.
Oh
He will, he,
no.
he will take care of you.
Oh no. By take care, you mean dehand.
And more. Yes, he gets there, tells R2 to stay with the ship, goes in, and kills everybody.
Basically. It's all kinds of fun.
And then back on Coruscant, you get the scene in the Senate with the attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed. Basically telling a warped version of events and saying that the rest of the Jedi will be hunted down and defeated. And then, in order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire. And
Da
he
da
sounds
da da
so
da.
evil. Like the people listening should be worried about how evil he sounds, but everybody's cheering wildly.
Do you think even the ET race is cheering?
I mean, they must be.
And Padme's line
Yes,
is,
another iconic line.
oh yeah.
So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause,
Yeah.
which feels too real.
Oh, just a bit. But we're not here to talk about
No.
that.
So while all this is going on, Obi-Wan and Yoda are going into the recordings of the Jedi Temple and discover what really happened. And Yoda says they must destroy the Sith, but Obi-Wan doesn't want to be the one to kill Anakin. He wants to go after the Emperor instead. But Yoda says that Obi-Wan is not strong enough to face Sidious alone, and Anakin is now gone, consumed by Vader. So basically, you got to go kill him.
Yep. He almost manages that.
I mean, he probably could have, but he didn't.
I know. I know.
So, in order to find out where he went, Obi-Wan goes to Padme and tells her what all happened, but she does not want to believe him, and she won't reveal where Anakin went. And I'm not sure how much he knew about Anakin and Padme. I think he must have known something because he has somehow figured out that she is pregnant with his child, and he tells her that he's so sorry and leaves. But then she quickly leaves also. She goes to Mustafar to find him. I don't think that she knew, but Obi-Wan has stowed away in her ship. I don't think she took him on purpose. I think he figured out that she would probably go after him, and he went and hid in her ship.
Always possible.
So they land on Mustafar. Padme finds Anakin and tells him about her conversation with Obi-Wan, and he doesn't deny anything. He just says Obi-Wan is trying to turn you against me. Which the fact that he didn't deny anything that she said should have been a red flag.
Yeah, but she's in love.
Yes. She basically begs him to run away with her to raise their child in peace. And he says they don't have to run away anymore. He can overthrow Palpatine and they can rule the galaxy together.
We can rule as father and son. Oh no, wait. Husband and wife.
Which I guess this finally snaps her out of it. She finally realizes that Obi-Wan was right and is backing away in horror. She says, I don't know you anymore. You're breaking my heart. Which I shouldn't laugh because this scene is so sad, but I feel like they could have written that line differently.
Yeah, or the delivery could have been, I don't know. I think it's just a weird line, really.
Yes, yeah. Like most of the lines in their romance.
Yeah. And I don't know, do you think it was just the writing or was it also the acting that it didn't really it came across, but it didn't come across as much as it should have.
I feel like it was the writing because I think in other scenes they are great. I think it's just the lines that they were given. There's not really a good way to deliver them.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I'm not an acting expert. I just know that some scenes worked really well and other scenes were very clunky, and the difference usually was the fact that it was supposed to be emotional.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So at this point is where Obi-Wan reveals himself, and Anakin accuses Padme of lying and bringing Obi-Wan to kill him, and then he force chokes her into unconsciousness. And this is where the massive lightsaber battle starts.
And actually, I read a piece of trivia that was saying that Ewan and Hayden they spent like just tons and tons of time like working through all the lightsaber battle. So there was, I guess, some things online that were saying that they sped up the footage, but what they're doing is essentially just normal pace, or just they practiced that much.
Hmm, I guess that makes sense. They were going really fast.
Yeah.
And when this battle is going on, you're cutting back and forth between both this battle and the back and forth between Yoda and Palpatine. You have Yoda confronting Palpatine and getting Force lightning zapped away. And I don't know if this is iconic to anyone but me, but he says, I have waited for this a long time, my little green friend.
I know the I've been waiting for this for a long time has is a line that appears. It's kind of like I have a bad feeling about this. Like it appears across
Uh-huh.
multiple Star Wars movies.
I love the addition of my little green friend. Makes it sound like he's talking to Kermit or something.
Next time you have broccoli, you're going to look at it and go, I've been waiting a long time for this, my little green friend.
So yeah, that erupts into a lightsaber battle, and then you're cutting back and forth as Yoda and Palpatine like ascend into the Senate chambers, and Anakin and Obi-Wan are battling through Mustafar. Like the place where they are is like some kind of a mining facility. I don't know exactly what they're mining for.
I did
Lava,
actually
maybe.
look. It is actually a lava facility, but I looked it up. It was used Mustafar to produce a droid army. Darth City is also a secret facility on the planet where he intended to turn harvested Force-sensitive children into Force-talented spies.
Hmm. Okay.
But it was also a mining facility for lava, which you're not going to find a better, lava production planet than Mustafar.
Of course. But yeah, anyways, they're battling through this mining facility and they end up like hacking away at everything, and they hit something which destabilizes everything, and the whole place starts kind of tipping over, and now they're fighting across all the platforms and the lava. And then in the Senate chambers, Palpatine is really no match for Yoda. Yoda probably would have won this if he hadn't had to resort to other means of defeating him. He basically starts force tossing the giant Senate pod ship things at him to keep him away from him
Mhm.
until he gets tired out. And then he blasts him with force lightning and he loses his lightsaber. And he tries to like redirect the lightning, but there's like an explosion and it throws them over the edge. And he ends up falling all the way to the floor and has to get out of there. So he gets rescued by Bail Organa and tells him that into exile I must go. which I don't like. I know he has to go into exile in order to get to that point in A New Hope, or not A New Hope, in Empire Strikes Back. Like,
Right.
I feel like he should have kept trying.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he, and obviously in that moment, I'm sure there was a lot of, we can't win this, but the more the emperor is able to sink his fingers into stuff, the harder it's going to be. And they never, like you say, they never go back.
Uh-huh. They basically just wait for the next generation to grow up and deal with it.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
But back on Mustafar, they've basically destroyed the place, and Obi-Wan tries to appeal to Anakin one last time, but he refuses to see reason and tries to attack him again. Obi-Wan gets to the shore of this lava river, and then you get the line, "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground."
Oh my goodness. How do you even define that line, you know?
I don't know. It's just one of those things that has now been memed to death.
Oh, man, has it ever?
And of
Oof.
course, he comes back with, "You underestimate my power," and then basically lets himself get defeated by leaping over him
Yep.
and giving him just the easiest target to lop off all his remaining limbs.
I was
The
gonna
only
say
one
it's a
that
good way to
doesn't.
lose a finger.
He lost more than that. The only limb he didn't lose was the one he'd already lost from Count Dooku in the last movie.
It's not funny, but it is kind of funny. He just like, oh man. Like, how do you have a good sense of humor about losing all of your limbs? It's like, well, at least they're cauterized. I won't get secondary infections.
Yeah, gotta look at the bright side.
Absolutely. Always look on the
That's what I was just
bright
thinking.
side of life. Da-da, 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 da-da. I mean, you're surrounded by lava. It's hard to get much brighter than that.
Yes.
At least, I mean, if you're in the lava, if you're outside the lava, probably not. It's pretty dark. But
I mean, he gets a bit brighter when he lights up.
I tell you, he is fire.
Yes, you get all the back and forth. "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. I hate you." And then he bursts into flames as the lava river starts engulfing him.
Yeah,
And I guess, true to his word, Obi-Wan didn't want to kill him, so he just leaves him there, assuming he will die. He's
right.
incorrect about that.
He's really incorrect about that. I feel like everything here on out was just a series of weird ideas. Obviously, to follow through to New Hope, you have to, but
Uh-huh.
um, one other thing on that whole last minute about the higher ground thing. Apparently there was an episode of Mythbusters where they learned to use the surrogate lightsabers and restage the battle. They concluded there was little to no advantage to having the high ground.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, Obi-Wan leaves him there and goes back to the ship where C-3PO tells him that Padme's in trouble, so they take her to get medical attention while the Emperor arrives on Mustafar to rescue Anakin. And then I didn't know where any of this was happening, but according to Wikipedia, they were on an asteroid called Pallas Massa, and you see Yoda meditating. And according to Wikipedia, this is where he's listening to Qui-Gon Jinn,
Okay.
telling him about what he's learning about retaining consciousness after death. And this is where Yoda is apparently in some other media where Yoda declares himself an apprentice to Qui-Gon Jinn to learn this new technique or whatever.
Cool. That's great that you've got personal fulfillment and growth happening, but yeah, the universe has just been blown apart at the seams.
Yeah,
I suppose it's a case of like knowing when to fight it or like when to fight and when to run away. I suppose is what it comes to.
probably. And I guess they probably think that they will fight better later on if they run away and regroup for a few years. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
they could have done more, but also I guess most of them had been decimated and they didn't know who had survived.
Oh yeah.
They
No,
didn't really
100. I
have a way to
mean,
contact anyone, so
and the thing is you can't, I mean, just from a purely straightforward perspective, you can't put too much into it because A New Hope still has to happen. It needs to
Yes.
follow that route too. So
Yeah. But Obi-Wan arrives and he gets Padme into a medical facility with these strange little droids who say "ooh-bah, ooh-bah."
it's one of those cases where male and female children are both named the same. Like, oh, Uba. Is it a male or female? Uba.
Yeah, these droids tell him that Padme is dying, she's lost the will to live, and that she's having twins, which no one knew before then. And then she gives birth and names them as she's dying, Luke and Leia. And I don't know if this is supposed to be like, it's probably supposed to be like poetic juxtaposition. As the children are being born, so is Vader, as he
Right.
is being given all his replacement parts and being put into the armor. But then you get a scene as Padme dies, insisting to Obi-Wan that they're still good in Anakin. And then you have Vader being lifted up on his platform thing. He asks about Padme, and Palpatine lies and tells him that he killed her in his anger, which is kind of true, but also not completely true.
Right. From a certain point of view.
Yes. And to this, people hate this scene, but I don't know. He screams no. It makes sense. I guess I can see why people think it's silly, but I don't know. I don't hate this scene.
I think it's quite dramatic, but given everything that's gone down, you're a guy in a metal suit that, just was, had your limbs amputated. You just went through a ton of pain, skin grafts, whole nine yards. You're not going to be eloquent.
Hmm.
And with a voice like James Earl Jones, you do not whisper no.
Yes.
Although I will say, to hear him ask about Padme in the James Earl Jones voice is so strange.
Yeah, kinda. Because up until that point, you'd only had Hayden Christensen talking about Padme,
Yep.
and he'd never mentioned her in the original trilogy.
Right. For obvious reasons. But
But yeah, then you get a scene with Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Bail Organa deciding what to do with Luke and Leia. Bail says that he'll take Leia. He and his wife have always wanted a little girl, and they decide that Luke will be sent to live with his father's family. It's really his step family. He had almost no contact with this family.
no.
And then Obi-Wan is to watch over him as he grows up. Yoda also tells Obi-Wan that he has teaching from Qui-Gon that they will learn while they're in solitude. Then you get a scene with Bail Organa leaving R2-D2 and C-3PO in the care of Captain Antilles, who I think was in the original trilogy.
As mentioned, is he actually seen though?
I'm not sure. I just know the name.
Yeah, no, agreed. Because you've got Captain Antilles and then you have Wedge Antilles as well, which,
Oh, maybe
yeah.
that's why. Maybe it's like the father of
I
Wedge
don't
Antilles,
think, I remember reading about it
cousin,
someplace. I don't think they're,
uncle,
yeah, third cousin twice removed on his mother's side.
something like that.
I'm your mother's brother's sister's husband's babysitter's third nephew twice removed. What does that make us? Absolutely nothing.
But then he also orders a memory wipe of C-3PO for some reason, but not
Oh no.
R2-D2.
Well, R2 can't speak, at least by traditional means. So plus I think R2's got a lot more sense.
True. But it does mean that R2 remembers everything that happened and just doesn't tell anybody through the whole
Right.
rest of the movies.
Hey, R2 is no snitch.
True. Then you get Padme's funeral on Naboo. You have her being pulled down this row of like everybody in her court. You see people from the previous movies that like they only had a few scenes like in the first movie. And I feel like I'm not 100% sure. I need to look it up, but the person who plays the queen has since been brought back. And I don't remember if it was going to be the same character or not.
I was gonna say the girl there that plays her was also in an Oscar nominated movie called The Whale Rider.
I think I remember that. I don't know that I ever saw that movie. I remember when that movie was like a big thing.
Yeah, I remember seeing the all the promotional stuff for it and the Oscars, but I didn't because she was one of the youngest nominees ever. But I don't remember the person's name. Taisha Castle Hughes. She was the second youngest nominee in the Best Actress category.
I feel like she's done something recently in Star Wars. I can't remember if it was. Oh, that's right. She's in the Bad Batch.
Ah, cool.
And I probably shouldn't talk about what the character she plays because it's a huge reveal.
I won't say a word.
Anyways, at the funeral, it shows like a close up of her hands holding the Japor snippet that baby Anakin gave her, the little carved square thingy.
Aw.
And then I'd never thought about it before, but it was pointed out on Wikipedia that they have made her look like she's still pregnant.
Yep. I remember them talking about that.
So they're hiding the fact she gave birth. So basically, they don't want anyone coming after the kids. They want them to think the kids are dead too, or
Right.
kid, because
Yeah.
nobody knew that she was having twins.
Right. I remember reading about that in the I think it was the novelization.
And then you get a scene of I didn't pay attention enough, but if you look closely, it's Governor Tarkin with Darth Vader and the Emperor
Really?
overseeing the construction of the Death Star.
Oh, nice.
It doesn't look exactly like him. I'm not sure if it was somebody in makeup or if they were CGIing it, but it
I don't think so because at that point I don't think the technology would have been far enough along. Not that you can't do it, but to do a really good version of that at that point in time.
yeah. Well, there was no close up on his face, so whatever they
Uh,
did, if you look and know who you're looking at, it's supposed to be Tarkin.
oh, okay.
And then you get a scene on Alderaan as Leia is brought to, I guess her name is Queen Breha, Breha,
Okay.
according to Wikipedia. I wouldn't have known her name, but Bail Organa brings Leia to her. And then on Tatooine, you have Obi-Wan bringing Luke to his new family, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and he leaves to go into exile. And then you have them looking into the twin suns as the music swells. The end.
Eloquently put. What a wild ride.
Yep. I suppose we could probably wrap this up since we've been going for 3 hours.
Oof, yeah.
A lot of this will end up as either a bonus or extended episode.
Yeah. Understood. Well, it's been fun, man. I appreciate, it's been a fun journey through the first six movies.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to do the sequels eventually, but I think it would be more fun to do some of the shows for a while.
Yeah.
And maybe when we get to the sequels, we'll have a higher appreciation for I don't
No,
know.
and you know what we're always learning and changing and I will say this of the prequel trilogy. My opinion of them was never terribly high just because of how they fell and effects
Hmm.
and story and all that stuff. I will say with time there is a different appreciation. Phantom
Yeah.
Menace can still is iffy, but Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, I mean they're solid entries
Hmm.
given everything, and that's not nothing taken away from the sequel trilogy and the good stuff that they do have too. So kudos there. It tells a compelling story. It's still not as good as the original trilogy, but it's got good stuff. So
Yeah.
not that it didn't before, but I think with time, with most things, you kind of mellow a bit to it.
Hmm. I feel like most parts of Star Wars, well, it's like nothing is perfect. So you take the good with the bad and you focus on what you like the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, on that note, until we come back to do something else Star Wars in the future, do you want to let people know where to find you if they want more from you?
Absolutely. You can find me a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away over on YouTube. Trivial Theater. I do a wide array of random, obscure, and straight up bad movies, as well as some Star Wars adjacent things, I guess, more ripped off, storyline rip-offs more than anything else. But definitely stop by, do a wide array of things, and yeah, would love to see you.
Okay, well, until next time. Thanks for listening to I Heart Movies. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.